What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here, breaking down the Cracker Barrel 400 Nashville Super Speedway for this weekend's race. Another night race over on Amazon, which I think they did a fantastic broadcast last week. And last week's race was most likely the best of the season. Exceptional racing. We had late race drama. It pretty much checked every single box. And like I said, Amazon knocked it out of the park, and hopefully they can do it once again this weekend. But anyway, this happens to be your first time here. What's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. Videos on Saturdays, live streams on Sunday, planning for around 5 p.m. Eastern this weekend, so be there, be square, always a good time. If you do end up enjoying today's video, make sure you leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for brand new, and let's dive right into it. All right, let's talk some strategy here for Nashville. It's a bit of a unique track, so while it is an intermediate, it's not as big, because typically we look at intermediates as, say, roughly around 1.5 miles in length. This is basically Darlington length, but it's definitely not going to race like Darlington. But I think just looking at the intermediate track success this year should have some decent correlation. It's also a concrete surface, which the other tracks that have concrete surfaces would be Bristol and Dover. Now, Bristol and Dover do have some decent correlation with each other. I think they kind of have a lot of the drivers that do perform well at those tracks. And coincidentally enough, I'm not sure if that's the reason why or not, but the drivers that are good at those tracks also tend to be pretty good at Nashville. Guys like Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott also pops up, Christopher Bell, so it's a little interesting to me. But we do have 300 laps this weekend, which means there's a decent amount of diameter points. It's right on par with, say, Phoenix as far as laps is concerned. So you're looking at most likely, depending on qualifying, but if we have our normal set of drivers that are towards the front of the field, we're looking at roughly 2 Dom builds. And looking at our figure this week, I might show you 2. See how I feel in like 27 seconds. But looking at driver performance at concrete tracks in the next gen era. So this is all the races at Nashville, Bristol, and Dover. And like I said, I don't really want to look at how drivers perform at Bristol, but I just find it interesting at the very least because we don't have many concrete surfaces. But Denny Hamlin is my concrete king. He has been incredible at these track types. And as you can see, he's at the very top, which does validate my suspicion on that. We have Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, and Chase Elliott. And it's just, it's kind of funny because these are the drivers that absolutely crush Bristol, they crush Dover, they crush, obviously, Nashville. So it's got some weird type of correlation. It's not like Chase Elliott's been great or anything, but he does kind of show up with these concrete tracks. He has been a factor at these tracks, so I do find it a little interesting at the very least. And if we look at this next figure, we're just looking at Nashville specifically since next gen, and as you can see, it's basically the same set of drivers up at the very top, so there is a decent amount of, I guess, correlation between Denny Hamlin's at the very tippy top, Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell. Now besides Ross, which Ross was very close in the last figure, it's the same set of like top 4, top 5 drivers in that top right. And let's just keep going because why the heck not? Data is fun to look at, especially when we have pictures. But this is looking at a data set that has concrete tracks since next gen and intermediates this season. And, no surprise, you're going to see Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin up at the very top. That second tier of William Byron, Christopher Bell, and Chase Elliott. And then the other drivers you kind of expect. Now, Ryan Blaney, we always say to take into context. He's tended to qualify poorly this year, which is going to hurt the average running position a bit, but he has been exceptional speed-wise, just has run into a lot of issues. Alex Owen's been a home run hitter. He's either going to strike out or hit a homer, it seems like this year. I believe I saw a stat where he's either running inside the top 10 or he wrecks out, basically. So that's been fun, but the speed has been there, but take it for what you will. This is just some of the data sets that I'm looking at before we see practice, before we see qualifying. And finally, moving on to the driver by driver breakdown. There's one thing first. It's a free video, guys. You gotta let me do my plug and feed the dog. But if you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, link is down in the description or the pinned comment for the Patreon. I also cover baseball each and every single day in a similar fashion. And if you are a new user, you can sign up completely free for a week and test drive all the tools that I do have to offer. And I won't sit here and mention everything we got, but you're not going to find this amount of data. And it's not just previous data, which is fine to look at, but there's a lot of predictive data on here as well. I cover it for trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. You just won't find this amount of data out there available to you at these price tags. I do have other tools as well, including the optimizer, which is fine for DraftKings and FanDuel, and the DraftKings contest simulator, which works for trucks, Xfinity, and the Cup series, and you can simulate up to 10,000 lineups at once and see which lineups stack up the best in tournaments or which drivers offer the best ROI before the race starts, and a fun Discord. So link down below in the description if you want to check it out. If not, that's fine, but let's dive into it. All right, it's the next day. Practice and qualifying just concluded, and no real like massive chalk like we saw last week with Ross, Brad Keselowski, everybody else in the rear. Now we do have a glaring Kyle Larson starting in nearly 30th, which is definitely going to be a big talking point, but outside of that, we're not really seeing any major chalk bombs. But let's head over to practice here and see what we have to deal with. I will mention, looks like Group B had a bit of an advantage, although it seemed like the better drivers were kind of in Group B, besides maybe Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney. But before we sort this by groups within their groups, just overall, Tyler Reddick, just clean across the board here at number 1. Hamlin was also amazing. William Byron, Chastain, Keselowski, not really surprised with those drivers. Now, if we sort this within their groups and with their rankings, which I believe, yeah, it is in the ranking. As you can see, the best ranking for a Group A driver was 10.2. Meanwhile, Group A, you get 1, 2, 5, 5, 5. So they definitely had a bit of an advantage. I don't think Group A is going to be that far off just during the race. So we kind of have to figure out, like, well, how much do you really want to weigh that against each other? So I think maybe looking at the groups. So if you're looking at Group A, Bubba Wallace, Carson Hocevar, Ty Gibbs, Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, the best drivers. Now, I was kind of concerned with Kyle Larson's lap times. I figure, Kyle Larson kind of struggled in practice. I'm sure he'll be better during qualifying. No, it was just kind of slow overall. He didn't really mess up too much. Just didn't really look like he carried much speed, which is really off for Kyle Larson. He's typically either going to be fast in practice or fast in qualifying. Did not get either. If we look at the second group here, Reddick, Hamlin, Byron, top dogs here, which doesn't really surprise me. Chase Elliott's up there as well. He's really good at concrete tracks. So, you can really, I guess, figure out for yourself how much you want to factor in the practice times. I think just kind of weighing them within their groups is probably the best way to do it. And if we're looking at consecutive lap averages, you're going to see a lot of the Group B drivers just populate across the board. Reddick, Hamlin, Chastain, Byron, Keselowski, Briscoe, and Chase Elliott. So we'll go driver by driver. We'll break it all down here. We'll start with the 5-figure range first. We have 3 this week, only 1 driver in the 11K range. And keep in mind, we have 300 laps this week, so diameter points are pretty important. If you are playing cash games, the popular choice is going to be going with Kyle Larson just because of who he is. Pre-practice, I should say, he was the race favorite. I'm assuming that's not going to be the case afterwards, but he's always going to be a top 5 contender. My only worry is maybe he doesn't get the dominator points this week. And if he does not get the dominator points at that price tag and someone like Byron gets them, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Blaney, whoever it may be, they're going to severely outscore Kyle Larson, and he won't really pay off that price tag. So while I think the floor is great for Larson, I do have some concerns in tournaments, just if he does not reach that potential of getting up front, clicking off fast laps, and those lap-led points, which he absolutely needs at $11,000. Now, he's good at Nashville. He has won here before. That was not in the next-gen era, but in the next-gen era, 3-race sample size, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s. So I think it'd be very off-putting for him to have a poor race. And we know how good the 5 team is at making adjustments throughout a race. So I'm sure he'll be better. He has a good play. Obviously on FanDuel, when the dominator points don't mean as much, he's just the perfect FanDuel play. But on DraftKings, when the dominator points mean more, I just have some concern because of that. Now, the dominators here, William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, all these guys have dominator upside. They were pretty much all good in practice, although my favorite, at least on the eyeball test from what I've seen on track Saturday and just recent track history, it's going to be Denny Hamlin for me. And we do have the baby narrative. And also another thing we do have to talk about is that the fact that he might not actually be at this race. He's supposed to have a baby on June 1st, but obviously I don't know too much about it, but it could be within that window. And if it happens in the window, Denny Hamlin will not be at the race. And Ryan Truex will fill in. I believe he has a price tag, if I remember correctly. I want to say it was like $60, $100, but keep in mind, Denny Hamlin might not be there. And if he's not there, we have to take him out of the player pool, and that's a bump for these other drivers in this range, like Byron, Bell, and Chastain, just because I think the best car is Denny, and he has been really, really good at Nashville. He's also been very good at concrete tracks. He should have won this race last year, and he has been the best dominator. So if he's good to go, he's my favorite dom play, but if not, it just opens the door up for just easy dominator points for everybody else. And I won't go too in-depth on Bell, Chastain, they're all in the same group, but Denny Hamlin does have my preference. And then Ryan Blaney's kind of like that hybrid play. He's been better than Larson in practice. I think Blaney will be fast. He's definitely a nice pivot off of Larson and GPPs because they're in the same price range, but with Larson starting double the spots further back, more ownership will flock to him. But if Blaney is the faster car and he's the one that gets the fast laps, it's top 5 contender, he can pay off over Larson at lower ownership. Dropping out of the 9K range, Tyler Reddick, Chase Elliott, and Joey Logano. If I had to rank these guys, I think currently I'm going to go with Chase Elliott, Reddick, and Joey. I mean, I don't really have anything against any of them, but I mean, if we're going to be heavy on some of these 10K drivers, which, I mean, there's none that really stand out as absolute must plays, but I think projection-wise, you're going to want them in your lineups. But Chase Elliott's really good at concrete tracks. He has won in the next-gen era here at Nashville. 2 top 5s in 3 races. One of the better average running positions. One of the best driver ratings. I think he'll be an intriguing tournament play. I'm not really sure how many people are going to want to click on Chase Elliott. Just doesn't typically dominate at his price tag, which is pretty off-putting, which I never usually play too much Chase anyway, unless there's enough PD. But I think him and Reddick make some interesting GBP plays. Logano did win this race last year, but keep in mind, 20 cautions at the end. All the best drivers had to pit. He would have finished like, 15th or 20th. He lucked out and won. That's just what Joey Logano does. Dropping down to the 8K range. A couple of tournament plays here. And then Kyle Busch just doing Kyle Busch things where he spun out in practice and then put down a very pedestrian qualifying lap. So we'll talk with Briscoe first. He's on the pole. I was hoping it would just be Danny on the pole and he could just drive away into the sunset and we collect our downer points. But now we have Briscoe and we had to think about it. The thing is, though, it's not like he sucked in practice and just randomly got a good quali lap. He was actually pretty fast, and last week he started on the pole as well. Now, he did not lead a lap, I don't believe. Did end up getting there at the very end, just with a nice finish, but obviously DFS-wise, the place differential plays did end up outscoring him. But I think there is potential here for Briscoe to put down some lap lead points early on, and then at least hang around. I mean, he's in a JGR car. The Toyotas looked really fast. Bubba was fast in his group, then Denny Hamlin, of course, Tyler Reddick. So I don't think Briscoe should be too far off. And he puts together some decent finishes at these intermediate style tracks this season. Now, Nashville specifically for him hasn't been great, but we have to keep in mind he wasn't an SHR car, and those just aren't really quite up to speed. Now, in a Gibbs 19 car, which we know Martin Truex Jr. has had some fine runs, I think he makes for an interesting play. I'm not sure if we're going to get there in cash games in nearly $9,000 because, I mean, Denny Hamlin could very easily just beat him on the restart at the start of the race. But he's definitely in that Dom pool for sure. Chris Buescher starting in 10th. He's in the GPP pool, but I don't really think he's going to dominate. Probably looks like a better FanDuel play. He's only $8,200. I think he can hang around the top 10. DraftKings just doesn't look quite enticing, and the same could be said for Keselowski. But Keselowski, on the other hand, was pretty quick in practice. I'll have to check his practice group here. So Kes was in Group B, so maybe the times are a bit inflated. But at the same time, I believe Chris Buescher, yeah, he was in Group A, so the times are going to look a little bit worse for him, but he was worse in his group than Brad Keselowski was. And Brad's had some really good speed in recent weeks. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So he could be like on the outside looking in of the dominator pool this week starting in 6th, but the speed does look solid. Kyle Busch will probably, I don't really think there's going to be too much upside here. Like, he'll gain spots, sure. He should be like a top 15 contender, but there's just no way to trust him at this point. 7K range, looks like we're finally getting into some of these PD plays. I mean, if all these guys don't have PD, they got to start coming eventually. And we have Alex Bowman, Josh Berry, Carson Hocevar, Ty Gibbs, and pretty much everybody else starting in this like 15th to 25th range. So there's probably not going to be too much differentiation wise when projections end up coming out. Just looking at Nashville history, Berry has never been in the 21 car here, so I don't really think it's fair to look at. Alex Bowman in a Hendrick car typically ran around 20th place, but does have 2 top 20s for where he's starting in his price tag. Alex Bowman's 100% in play. I mean, he's just been too fast in intermediates this year. They roll him out. Carson Hocevar has had a ton of speed this season at the intermediates. Like, overall, I feel like he's almost been top 10 almost every single intermediate, but then he ends up finishing like 30th. And we know last week he almost won this race. Obviously, there was still ways to go, but he had one of the fastest cars. He started pretty much last, drove his way to the front, and then the engine goes out when he restarts on the front row. Just horrible luck. But Hocevar, Alex Bowman, Josh Berry, I mean, all of these guys look like very solid plays. Ty Gibbs has been really good here at Nashville as well, and I don't think he's too far behind the rest. If we're looking at practice times, I'd say the best of the practice times was probably Carson Hocevar, but I guess it would make more sense to look at the groups So Hocevar was in Group A, so was Ty Gibbs, but they were second and third in their group for my rankings, and Alex Bowman was also fifth. So it doesn't look like they lack too much speed. So when we look at these lap averages, they might not pop a little bit, but we have to keep in mind of what group they were in. So I think that's even more encouraging, considering most of them were in Group A. Ryan Preece starting in 19th. He has been my moneymaker in recent weeks because we have had just a massive amount of place differential plays, and he's always priced right between them. And then he starts like 10 spots further up than the rest, so nobody wants to play him as much. And then he just drives his way to the front. So I think Ryan Preece, probably just another really solid tournament play this week. Not going to be too interested in Austin Cindric personally, starting in 16, just based off of everybody else that's priced around him. Not saying he's going to run horrible, but at the same time, I just can't play everybody, so he'll be lower on the list. And Bubba Wallace, he's starting in 12th. He is $7,000. Looking at practice here, he was the best in Group A, so when you're looking at practice times, probably a bit skewed against him. He's just kind of in that range with everybody else. I hate to say it, but almost all these 7K drivers feel the exact same. I think they all have borderline top 10 upside. But for where he's starting, Bubba Wallace, he probably just won't project as well, but probably has the best finishing position potential. 6K range, Daniel Suarez, Corey Heim. Just never fun playing Daniel Suarez. He just seems to have bad luck or slow cars every single week. Trying to see what group he was in. He was in Group A, pretty much middle of the pack here. I mean, the PD is there. If you land on him, it's fine because he can gain 10 spots. But are we really excited about playing Daniel Suarez? Corey Heim's kind of in the same boat. He has had one race this year at an intermediate. 3-race sample size in the Cup Series, though. Form average running position 24th, finished 22nd. I mean, he's in a JGR ride pretty much. He's with 2311 in the 67 car. And, Bubba had some decent speed. Tyler Reddick was one of the best cars in the field on Saturday, so he's fine. There's nothing wrong with Daniel Suarez and Corey Heim because there's at these types of tracks, or just really almost every single week, we have a lot of shuffling go around, guys wreck, there's cautions, and then a guy that was 26 in speed all day ends up finishing 16th. And I would be lying if I said that just can't happen for Suarez and Corey Heim, and the floors are fine. Noah Gregson's in that same boat. Zane Smith's also in that same boat. I think Noah Gregson will probably be pretty interesting. Looking at his practice times, they're pretty poor. He was in Group B, and he had one of the worst times in Group B, so that's a little concerning. If you can spare the extra few $100 for Corey Heim, Daniel Suarez, it might make you feel a little bit better. But Stenhouse, McDowell, Jones, they look pretty close to unplayable at those starting spots. AJ Allmendinger, outside of the massive PDs, he'd be the one I get to that is starting inside the top 20. He's a little bit hit or miss, though. I mean, there's some weeks I love Dinger because of what I've seen from him at similar tracks, and he'll just bomb and finish 30. Sometimes it's not his fault. But then last week, I mean, he was great in practice, great in qualifying. It was just almost impossible to play him, but he stuck it there the entire race. So I can't really slander Edgy Allmendinger. Looking at practice, I believe he was in Group B. He wasn't quite with the elite drivers, but kind of on the outside looking in. I wish he was starting a little bit further back, but he's in that tournament pool. I do like him more than these two right here. Austin Dillon's another tricky one. They don't have a lot of speed whatsoever in practice. I mean, Todd Gillen starting in 35th. I would rather get there. Personally, I'd rather give it John Hunter Nemechek. Those are probably very popular plays if you're looking for punts. I mean, they're starting in the very back of the field, and they can definitely move up. John Hunter Nemechek has actually been very solid so far this season. Outside of that, not really seeing too much I want to play. I could see people going to Riley Herbst at $5,100 just because he starts 37th. Other than that, not a lot to like. I mean, Ty Dillon's in 31st. He's actually been decent. And the sample size this year, I believe he's actually, 9-race sample size this year. Not quite all similar tracks. But running position of 23rd is not that bad. Nemechek's at 22nd. Ty Gillen's in 23rd. And for their starting, I think that's fine enough. Riley Herbst, you'd think he'd be better this year. Running position of 29.7. That's 6 spots worse than Ty Dillon so far this year. And he's in a 23-11 ride. So for me, I would just be looking at the major PD plays in the 5K range of Gilly, Nemechek, Riley Herbst, and maybe Ty Dillon. With that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, or even if you didn't, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. Any questions, comments, concerns, or check out all the extra content over on Patreon. You know where to find it. Link can be found down below. Just for my first rundown through the slate, it does seem a bit confusing, and I'm not exactly sure the ways I want to go yet. So we'll be more polished up on the live stream tomorrow. Then once I look at projections, once I look at numbers and see what the field's going to do. And then we'll have to obviously wait out the news on Denny Hamlin. That could completely change the slate. So good luck to us all. I wish you all the best, and I'll see y'all next time.